Test, test, test. Do you have a kiss for Daddy? Does Daddy have a kiss, please? Thank you. Yes, that means it's going to be a good episode. Do you want to say anything? You're not feeling very talkative today, are you? But luckily for all of us, I am. Today we're going to talk about the fact that I just came from a show and I'm finally going to discuss my artwork. So let's get unbothered.
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unbothered by Thai Rivera. That's right, it's Unbothered by Thai Rivera. I'm your host, Thai Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. We're coming to you live and in color from the puppy pad. If you didn't just see, I had my puppy with me. She was feeling kissy today a little bit, but she's also kind of chill today, and I respect that. And sometimes people ask me why she's not on certain episodes, and it really is because sometimes she doesn't want to be, to tell you the truth. Like, sometimes I'll call her over to me, and she'll either go under the coffee table, or she'll, like, kind of non-verbally let me know that she's not in the mood for it. And I have this weird relationship with every dog I've ever owned where outside of things that they absolutely have to do or things that could be potentially dangerous for them, I don't really do a lot of making them do things. Like, we'll do fun activities like teach them to sit, and she can do the, crawling, like the army crawl. I haven't had her do it in a while, but she can do it, and she rolls over. She can do some tricks, With Bijou, though, I taught Bijou to do bang, bang, and where I shoot her, give her the little shooter gun, and she would flip over on her back like she had died. But she was so anxious to get her treat because Bijou was very much food driven. That's one thing that I had to really learn with this little dog, Baby Girl. And people ask me why her name's Baby Girl. And the truth is, when I got her, I was still super heartbroken from Bijou. And I'll end up doing an episode about that sometime at some point, because I would say I'm in a very healthy place with Bijou having to go to heaven now, which if you saw those episodes, those were really rough. I cried on every episode for like maybe 3 or 4 episodes when Bijou was going through it and stuff like that. But I had a really good conversation with one of my best friends yesterday because he came over and we were talking, we went for a walk in the park and stuff like that. And he's just a platonic friend. He's one of the 2 gay friends that I always talk about that I really love them. And both of them live in different cities, but he's going to be moving back to Phoenix, which is great. But I know how we both are, and our relationship will still stay very much online because that's a lot of times where we all 3 chat is, on Instagram Messenger. We're in a group together. Just us 3 in the group, and we have a lot of fun. And one of the things with this friend is he's very much left-leaning, and I mean very left-leaning, like BLM and all that stuff. And I was thinking about that the other day, and one of the things that I really like about our relationship is that we never talk about politics. Well, I wouldn't say never. We've talked about politics before, but we don't argue about politics on any level, and it's very rare that we even talk about it. And I know that we wouldn't argue because the times that we have talked about it, we haven't argued at all. Actually, I can see things his way and why he thinks the way he thinks, and from what I can tell, he feels the same, and we don't really have or I shouldn't say or even put the word really in there because we have no friction at all when it comes to that kind of stuff. And for me, that's very easy. Like, a lot of people assume that I would always want to put my opinions out there and stuff like that. And I feel like between this, my podcast, and then when I do the videos throughout the week, I get to express my opinion so much that when I'm around other people, I, for the most part, let them do more of the talking than I do. And if it's like a complete stranger and they have complete opposite views from me, I won't even mention what my views are. I'll just let them talk and listen to them. And I'm not trying to find any kind of gotcha or anything like that. I just look for the places that I can actually relate to people and where I can actually get along with people, and then I focus on that. Like, that's kind of been my strategy in a lot of life. Now, people also don't always understand, because some people think that maybe my in person would be so much different from the way that I am online, as far as if I have to debate that stuff. I've done a lot of panels and I've done a lot of podcasts where it has been more debate style and me having to actually defend my positions. And I have fun with those too. I don't mind doing them. I can be aggressive when I need to be, and I have been aggressive with people because I don't usually talk about things unless I really know some facts about what it is I'm saying. And like, when I say talk, I can talk about anything, but I mean like really debate anything or get into it with people in any kind of way, unless I really have my ducks in a row and I know what it is I'm saying and why it is I'm saying what it is I'm saying. And and so I can be both. And I really like that about the way that I've developed my personality, because I've came from a different place mentally, or the way that I used to see things, where I used to sometimes be a little bit more aggressive or argumentative than I needed to be. But I always say, I don't know if you guys have heard me say it on this podcast before, but I do always say that we learn to do the right things by doing the wrong things. Like, that's why when I hear people have a past where they've done things a particular way and now they've come around, I'm not the person that's going to remind you. Well, unless you were real hardcore and getting people canceled and being a real POS about it, then I will definitely remind you and be like, oh no, you were very clear about what you were. So yeah, maybe you can be cool in a while, but for right now, you're going to have to sit a lot of it out. Because that's what I've noticed with a lot of people that go from one side to the other, and that goes from people going from the left to the right and the right to the left. Whichever way people go, a lot of times what you find with the people that do that, and just like, because, anybody can change their mind. And I get that, and I respect it, and I don't have a problem with that. I mean, like, I've changed my mind a lot in my life. But what will get me is when people have just come from the other side, and like I said, whether that's left or they're right, and they're super aggressive about it. And because a lot of times what I find with those people is that they just kind of ran out of ways to be toxic in their old position. And so now they've adopted this new position and they want to be just as toxic in that. That's been what I've noticed. And let me know down below in the comments if you know what I'm talking about, or if I sound like a crazy person. I don't mind either way, like, that's one thing people don't get about me either, is like, my comments really are open to people, disagreeing with me or having feelings that are opposite of me. There are some things that aren't productive, and there's some things that, like, I'm really not going to humor. And sometimes I just don't have time, or I can't respond to everything, especially on some of the, like, weekly videos. I try to respond to everything on Unbothered, which, if you're not subscribed to this channel, I know that I post about these on my regular channel, so some people get confused, but this is a different channel. So make sure that you're subscribed if you're not already. And like I said, we are going to talk about my artwork. I also got asked for an update on the guy that I was, like, seeing for that little while. And, I'll talk about that just really quick. What happened was, after the night that he stood me up, and I told you guys that I let him know that I didn't appreciate that and I didn't like the way he handled it, because, like, for me, that situation could have been very easy and it was handled disrespectfully. That's what really bothered me about that situation, because to me, it would have been fine if he had said that I'm still out doing what I was doing. I thought I was going to be done, or I was done earlier, and then we ended up coming back out to do more stuff, or we ended up going to a different location and doing more stuff. I do stand-up comedy. Well, I haven't done it for a while, because I really have been concentrating on online. But like, I'm so cool with that kind of stuff that if he had just said, like, I need an extra hour, or, even an extra hour and a half, I'm a night person, so I wouldn't have been mad at that at all or made a deal of that. That would have been fine. But just to kind of turn it around on me, which if you didn't see that episode, it's called I Got Stood Up. You can see it there. I'm not going to run through it again. But, and if not, you can get it from the context. But, yeah, so I didn't appreciate that. Also, I didn't appreciate that he apologized, and like, he didn't get that if we were trying to date, which was, like I said in the other episode, the way that he was trying to push it or sell it, even when we were on Grindr, and then, even like afterwards when we were talking throughout that week or whatever, the week leading up, he had pushed it like he wanted to be in a relationship with me, get to know me in that kind of way. And that, to me, is not something that I would do to even a regular platonic friend. I wouldn't do that to anybody, where it's like, we're supposed to hang out, they get all the way ready, we have a plan in place, and then 4 minutes before they're supposed to leave their house, I'm going to tell them, like, I'm not done, and then just kind of leave them hanging, and then afterwards kind of put it on them, put it on them, and act like, well, why would you leave? It's like, well, because we had a plan. Like, that's what I would do with any of my other platonic friends. If we had a plan set up and I was supposed to pick them up or leave my place at a certain time, I would just leave my place at a certain time. That's why I did it with him that way, was because in my world, the way that it works is I go out and, head that way, because I had to pick up cigarettes anyway, that was in the direction of where he's at, or where he was supposed to be at. And I just expected that he would hit me up and let me know when he was going to be there. Like, I've had friends do that with me all the time, especially with flights, because like I said, my two best friends are out of town, live out of town now. And so, like, my best friend Thomasina, that I mentioned before, whose real name is actually Thomas, but we just call her Thomasina, and he is a gay man. But, with the gays, we're fun with the pronouns she and her and all that. It's like there's no gender confusion going on. Let me be clear about that. I always have to say that because the world we live in. So I'm not going to I'm not going to gaslight you guys and be like, well, why should I have to say that? Because it's something we have to say. But there have been times where his flight ends up getting in a little bit later than he planned to. And if we're planning on going out that night, I'll pick him up at the airport. And so he'll tell me, like, hey, I'm going to be a little bit late because, the plane had to taxi for longer than we thought, or that kind of stuff. And so to me, it really didn't have to be a thing. But anyway, so then because, I told him that night, I'm just going to leave you alone, when he was acting like that with me, because he was being shitty when, we were on the phone. And so I literally told him the words, I'm just going to leave you alone, which to me, if I say I'm going to leave you alone, that means you leave me alone too. Like, we're not obviously going to work out in that kind of way. I don't really, and I hate to sound like this, but I really don't, because it's true. I really don't have time to add another friend in the mix. Like I said, my friend Derek Quisha is going to be moving back, and we're probably going to mostly talk online because we're both busy people, and he's going to live in a different part of town from me. So I would be surprised if we get together maybe once every 2 weeks. And that's the way I see a lot of people in my life, with the exception of my family, is I only see them when I see them, when I have a chance or when they have a chance. Everybody I know is pretty busy. And so, and I'm also, it's not that I'm not social, because I can be very social and I'm good at being social. Like, I'm not at all socially awkward or whatever. I'm a bit of a goofball in public sometimes, I'm silly, but I'm not at all like one of those people that's like, oh, I'm scared to talk to people or whatever. I sometimes get overwhelmed because some places I go, especially like in the comedy world, I talked about this when I was in Austin. Sometimes I would just get like, it was just too much coming at me, you know, because a lot of the newer comics would be talking to me about a lot of stuff. And then I know all of the older and more established comics as well. And so sometimes you have so many people talking to you. And I've always lived a life that's been a lot of solitude. You know, like I spend a lot of time by myself, and I like that. You know, I really do like spending a lot of time by myself. And sometimes I don't even have music on or the TV playing, you know, because mostly what I watch is YouTube. I don't even have regular TV, but I watch other stuff online too, like sometimes Netflix or things like that. I have smart TV, but yeah. So I sometimes I'm just used to a lot of silence and a lot of just, you know, me with my dog, that kind of stuff. And so, I can get overwhelmed, but I'm not, but I'm also good at handling that. And I'm also good at not making it anybody's problem. And like, you know, sometimes I'll snap. That does happen, but it's kind of rare. But you know, like because what a lot of people don't understand about the comedy world is there are a lot of people that are on the booger sugar, and I don't do anything. Like, you know, every once in a while I'll smoke a little bit of the wacky tobacco. That'll happen, but even that I go on long breaks from and don't do that all the time. But like, I'm clear-headed, so I'm not drinking when I'm out. I'm not doing nothing. I'm just not. And so sometimes those people will be around, and sometimes there are other comics and people that I know, like, or I'm acquainted with, and they'll really, I don't know if you've ever talked to a person that's on the booger sugar, but they will really talk your ear off. Red Ben refers to it as an ear beating. Him and his fiance, I don't think they got married yet. They'll refer to it as an ear beating. And yeah, sometimes people will just be giving me a heavy ear beating, and there will come a point where I'm like, because one time I had to do it with this guy. I won't mention his name here. I like him. And it was just a quick like snap because he wasn't understanding the social cues. I was literally in a conversation with someone and he's trying to talk my ear off, and I'm in a conversation with somebody else. And I politely tried to kind of redirect him and go back to the conversation that I was actually in. And finally, I did have to tell him, and I was like, I'm actually having a conversation here. I don't know if you see me talking to this person, which he had to have seen me. He's sitting right next to me or right across from me trying to yap in my face. But it's like, so I don't know if you see me trying to have this conversation here, but right now I'm trying to focus on this. Like, we're actually talking about something. And so, and you know, he took it the way he should have taken it, because it wasn't meant to be rude. It just really had gone on for that long where he just wasn't picking up the cue that I am talking to this person. And a lot of times what people don't understand about my conversations is some of them are pretty technical and some of them are pretty informational, whether that's about comedy, or a lot of people will talk to me about video editing and stuff like that. And with that stuff, it's so time consuming when it comes to video editing specifically, that I really will like want to hear what it is they're saying. Like if they have a tip that they can offer me, or a software that they're using, or a tool that they found online as far as AI goes that helps speed up their process, you know, which everything I use to a minimum. I'm not a person who does like anything, like, you know, I'm not excessive with the way that I use any of these tools. But as far as AI goes, AI can be very helpful when it comes to some of the things we do, even sometimes just like as a sounding board, or to like get an idea or make your idea better, as far as if you're trying to come up with like a title for a video. But I'm not going to get into the weeds on that. But that's a lot of times why I'll tune other people out, is because I'll be like, this information, I don't know if I'm ever going to have this opportunity to have this conversation with this person again. And right now we're talking about editing or tools that we can use or that I can use. And, and also I'm a lot of outgoing too, because I know a fair amount of stuff. And so sometimes it's me giving people advice or telling people about things that I use. And so it's a real two-way street when it comes to that stuff with me. And so, sometimes I just have to stop people. But anyway, to get back to what I was saying about that particular guy, what ended up happening with that is then he started trying to, like, after I told him I was going to leave him alone, he started liking all of my Instagram stories. And I don't know what she's doing in there. She's got a lot of toys. But he started liking all of my Instagram stories, like all of them. You know how you can hit the heart on people's stories? And like it would be anything, like if it was videos, compilation videos, which by the way, follow me on Instagram if you get a chance. It's official Thai Rivera. I am trying to build my Instagram. So he's liking everything, and I'm like, whatever, it's kind of weird because I knew that he was trying to like weasel his way back in. But also, like I told you guys, I began to get the feeling, even when we were talking, at the time we were talking, because I can nose these people out quickly because I've been around so many people that like will have ulterior motives or whatever. But I just began to feel like, his idea was like there was something to maybe use me for or something like that. And so I that's why I use the term like weasel back in. And so then he started trying to neg me by leaving comments, which comments go to your DMs, obviously, when they're to your stories. Like one time I was making the rice for my dog, which I don't know if you guys have ever made bland diet for your dogs. But if you ever make bland diet for your dog, you want the rice to be very smushy, like overdone, like what you usually wouldn't like, even though every once in a while I have a bowl of my dog's rice when they're... I love testing it for her to make sure it's soft enough because, you use the chicken water, the water from the boiled chicken, and then you drop the rice in there, and then you make it so it's like mushy, mushy, mushy. And so, I had said that on a video. I was like, I'm making rice for my dog. And then in a story a couple frames later, or however you would say that, a couple of stories later, I showed like the rice was done. And I was like, I made the perfect smushy rice today because it was so smushy and so good. And I was proud of myself, And I like, my girl does a lot for me, even though she's, just a dog. But she does a lot for me. I feel like that. I feel like she's really there for me. And so, and it's not even, I don't want to make it sound like I'm just using my dog as an emotional tampon, because that's not what goes on around here. But I just feel like she's such a big part of keeping me balanced and, really helping me and keeping me on task in a weird way, which was something Bijou did as well. And maybe that's just the way I see dogs, or maybe dogs really do play that role in my life because I know my life is better when I have a dog. But I was really proud of this rice that I made. And then he says something like, yeah, if you don't want it to be like that, then you should, you're supposed to soak your rice, or he said something like that, but he started off with, you can't cook for shit. You're supposed to soak I was like that. Like, you can't cook for shit. You're supposed to soak your rice first to whatever. And I was just like, yeah. I really was like, what does he not get about this is the way this rice is supposed to be for my dog? But I didn't respond to him, because like I said, I was leaving him alone. Once there's nothing there for me, there's nothing there for me. Once I realize that you're not going to be in a reciprocal relationship for me, because I don't need to use anybody for anything. There's nothing any of these fools can do for me. And if you ask me, until I meet the right one, they're all fools. But there's nothing any of these fools can do for me where it's like, I need you around for any particular thing. And that's whether it's physical or financial or whatever it is these people think, which I told you he didn't have a job, he didn't have a car, he didn't have his own place. So it definitely couldn't have been financial. You know, I mean, if you're doing that kind of thing, then maybe I'll put up with you, you know, if I know that you're going to be good for some actual finance. I've had some real, I told you guys, but outside of that, even guys that I've just dated, some of them have really come through. They have come through though, like, you know, where they could do things for me and buy me things, and that was nice, you know. I mean, like, there was one relationship, we won't get into that, but anyway, there's nothing he can do for me. And so it's like, we're not going to be in a relationship, and I'm not looking for a new friend. And so you're like basically cast aside, you know. But if you want to take a minute to neg me about rice, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm not going to be that quick to take the bait. And then it came to one time I posted about Raisin Bran, that I had felt like eating cereal, and Raisin Bran is one of my favorite cereals. Two favorite cereals I have, Trix and Raisin Bran. And I know Raisin Bran, a lot of people think of it as old people food or old people cereal because it's bran, you know, it's Raisin Bran. But for me, I really, really love raisins. So there's that. But when it came to Raisin Bran, that's got childhood memories for me, because when I was a kid, my parents would buy the variety pack of the little cereals like they have in hotels, you know, how they sell those, and they're just the little ones. And we used to get those, like my parents would buy those. And all of us, me and my sisters, at the time I only had my two sisters, my little sister hadn't been born yet. This is how young I was and how much it, you know, made an impression on me. But I remember that we all used to fight over the Raisin Bran. We all loved the Raisin Bran, me and my two sisters. One of my sisters has passed away, so I know she doesn't eat Raisin Bran anymore. But my oldest sister, I need to see if she eats Raisin Bran anymore. But we used to all fight over the Raisin Bran. And so I've always loved Raisin Bran, and now I love when I get Raisin Bran, because I don't eat it all the time because it doesn't really go with a lot of the diets that I do. But I think of Raisin Bran like that, you know? And so I was really happy that I had gotten Raisin Bran, because I think sometimes when you're older, you forget about that too, is that you can have the things that you wanted when you were young, you know, where when you were young, maybe your parents couldn't afford to be buying this stuff all the time, or, you know, but when you're older, you get like, oh, I can actually have the things that I like. And sometimes it's nice to remember that, and sometimes it's nice to just do that. And it will be something as small as Raisin Bran. But he just sent an LOL on that, which I know was, like I said, him trying to neg me. He was trying to kind of lightweight make fun of me. And it's not something I would get sensitive about. And if I'm dating somebody and they're like kind of ribbing you a little bit, you know how if you date somebody, sometimes they'll like, you know, make their little jokes. And no, I have fun. I'm like, have your fun. I'll do it with them too. You know, I don't care. But me and him aren't going to have that kind of relationship. And I know that that's what he's trying to do, is neg me. And I know that a lot of people, really, if they don't have good intentions and that's what they're trying to do with you, they're probably trying to get you to drop your self-esteem and feel like you're not good enough because of their insecurities. And then maybe if they bring you down low enough, you'll be willing to put up with the abusive situation that they want to have with you, you know, which with him, the abusive situation I know was going to be a non-reciprocal relationship where it's like him doing stuff like that. And I'm not that person that's going to put up with somebody like that. Like, so for me to be with somebody, they really have to be into me. They really have to be dedicated to me, and we have to be dedicated to each other. I'm not looking for a one-sided thing at all. And we really have to respect each other. And at this point in my life, I need plenty of alone time to be able to do the things that I have to do. So not only do they have to be secure and not worried and jealous and thinking that I'm going to be doing something because maybe I won't talk to them for long stretches of time throughout the day. I will talk to them every day, but there will be hours where they don't talk to me because I'm just recording, editing, doing all the stuff that I have to do. And then I sometimes will use people that I'm dating or seeing as my reward at the end of the day. Like, that's what'll keep me going, where I'm like, I got to get this project done. I got to get this video done because I want to be able to talk to this person. A quick text, cool. But as far as, me actually being able to take time and talk to them, I'll a lot of times save that as my reward. So not only do I not need to, because I'm also into monogamy. I know a lot of gays are into open relationships. I'm not. I'm a guy that's into monogamy. So, I need them to behave in a way that I know that I don't have to worry about them. Like, no mixed signals, no, like, you might be cheating or you might be like looking for something else or anything like that. I don't want to have to think about that. If you're the kind of person that wants to play games and make me jealous, I'm probably just going to drop you. Not probably, I'm going to just drop you because I don't have time for that. And so, so that, is another thing. And so, like I said, I just knew that he wasn't going to be good for me, but he's trying to neg me, right? And so I don't respond to that either. So now we have 3 times already that he's tried to neg me, and so then I end up posting about this piercing shop because I had to go to a different shop, but a friend of mine owns a piercing shop that's not too far from me, and I happened to be in their same shopping center because they do piercings and tattoos, which I haven't had anything done with them yet, but I probably will at some point. But he owns this piercing and tattoo shop, and it's in the same shopping center as one of the places that I get my hair cut. But now I found a new place to get my hair cut, but that's beside the point. But anyway, so I was there to get my hair cut, and then I ended up like running into my friend's store real quick, and his piercing shop is always packed. It's just like on the weekends. On the weekdays, it's a little more chill or whatever, but on the weekends, it's crazy. Like, just people. And that's consistent. Thank God for him. Good business. He's blessed. And I'm sure he works hard too. Well, I know he works hard. But so I ran in to say hi to him, and then I did a quick story on my Instagram, and I said in my story that I was going to go to a place later that day to get my piercings, get everything tightened up, and also I got new tips for these. And so I was saying something about that, and then he responded with boo, like boo. And I thought maybe he was booing about my friend's business because, it's right up the street from me and he lives pretty close to me. So I thought that maybe he was booing because he had a bad incident with either the piercing shop, because I also flashed over to where I get my hair cut in that same story, or the hair cutting spot, And so I will admit, I was intrigued by that because I was like, I wonder which one of these businesses he's had a problem with. And so I told him, so I was like, I responded finally, and I was like, what's the boo about? Do you know one of the businesses, or do you come to one of these shops? And, he was like, no, you're getting more piercings, and I just think that you would look better if you had less piercings and you also trimmed your facial hair. And now that's like next level negging, And so I responded with, how about you not hit me up until you have a sincere apology? Because to me, well, he also threw in, he was like, I think you'd get more guys like that. And I was like, I don't have a problem getting guys. And then like, he was like, said, oh, well, I'm sorry. And like, said something about how attracted to me he was. So obviously that's some sort of, saying something. And I like, At first, I was kind of, I guess you could say, trying to be polite about it, But I did tell him, I was like, yeah, you've been hitting me with negativity, and I've just been ignoring it. I was like, how about we're not gonna have that kind of relationship? Like, that's what I first said. I was like, if you want to hit me up, like, it's not gonna be like negative. And then he said something about like he hadn't realized, and it was all love, like that kind of message. And then I was just like, and then that's when I sent him, yeah, how about you just not hit me up until you have a sincere apology? And then he said, if you're expecting an apology from me, you're going to be holding your breath for a long time. And so I told him that basically, like, then let's just not be friends. And then he tried to say, look, we're both doing our own things and we both have busy lives. And I just let him know basically, well, not basically, I just let him know that you're unemployed. You don't have a busy life. And, and then he said something about social media. I was like, your numbers are shit on social media. Like, nobody's paying attention to you. And, because if you want to neg me, I'm good at that. I mean, like, that's part of the reason that I don't do it, is because people are going to think that they're being insulting with me, and then I'm going to show them the level of disrespect that I'll bring it to and the way I'll break you down. Because, if you want to talk about, like, me having less piercings would make me more attractive to guys. Well, you would be more attractive to guys if you had a job, if you had a place of your own, and if you had a car. Like, that's what would make you more attractive to guys. And still you'd have work to do. Like, he wasn't even, and then he did like mention something about us having sex or whatever. And I did have to be very honest with him. And I was like, do you think that, cause not to overshare, but I did raw dog him. He was the bottom, even though he says he's usually a top, but they all say that they're usually a top. But anyway, not all, there's plenty of bottoms. I shouldn't be talking about this, but we're grown-ups and this is Unbothered. And so, so I told him literally, I said, yeah, do you think that raw dogging you and busting inside of you was some sort of honor or an accomplishment for me? And then he kind of he got it, where it was just like, and I don't remember the way the full exchange went after that, but it was just me being very disrespectful. And I would tell you guys if I could remember, but I talk so much shit when people piss me off that, like, I literally can't remember. And I'll type fast, and just fire them off. And then, a while later, I noticed he had blocked me, which I was thankful for, because I didn't want him bugging me. And like, there's nothing to bug me about. And especially if you're going to be negative. If you were at least trying to be like cool, then I could get it, but like, you've already been disrespectful with me. Don't add disrespect to more disrespect. And now we'll talk about the artwork that's behind me a little bit, because people ask me about it all the time. If you notice, that's another one of his pieces right there. The name of the artist is brainsteming.com, or that's what he goes by. That's what his website is. I know him on a personal level. We get along really well. Like, he's a full-on straight man. He hasn't been doing art lately. He's got a wife and 2 kids now, and I've known him for quite a while now, probably a good 15 years or something like that. And like, his artwork isn't cheap. It's but we are genuine friends, and we were friends before I ever got any of his artwork and stuff like that. And there have been times where he's, where I've mentioned that I like things and he's given them to me as like a birthday present or something like that, But yeah, I really like his stuff, and his stuff just really speaks to me. And I'm not really an art guy. I'm not pretending to be, like, I'm not trying to act like, oh, I'm so snotty and I know art. Maybe I should have this way. But anyway, I'm not trying to be like that, I'm not that guy. But I just really like his stuff, and it really resonates with me. So, I've ever since the beginning, every place that I've moved, I've always had those two, pretty much, yeah. I've always had those two pieces of artwork in the background. Excuse me. And so I'll, even though I usually don't do edits or whatever, I'll go ahead and put them on the screen so that you guys can see them, because I'm going to look at them really quick so I can tell you what it is that they mean to me. Because I've had people put on my post that they seem satanic or whatever. I don't know where people get this idea, honestly. This is a thing people need to know about me. I talk about the fact that I'm Catholic. I talk about the fact that I believe in God. I talk about that stuff regularly, like throughout my entire life. So anything that would tell anybody anything different doesn't make sense to me, because there was a point when before I ever talked about the fact that I believed in God or anything like that on my videos, because it didn't come up for quite a while, where I could have easily just said, if I wanted to, if I was a Satanist or if I was into that kind of stuff, I would have just said it at that time, and there would have been no consequence, and I would have built my audience off of that, because either way, I'm going to be authentically me. I'm going to be who I am, no matter who's watching or who cares or who has problems with it. It's just what it is. And so if that's what I was, I would just say that, because there would have been no consequence to it. Now, I do realize at this point there would be a consequence to it, because so many people, that's one of the things that people actually do like about me, is that I am very open about that kind of stuff. And one day maybe we'll get into that more, you know what I mean? Like what I believe, because I'm still Catholic, but I can't really say that with a lot of stuff the Catholic Church has done, and some things I think would surprise people. But okay, so the first one we'll talk about is the one that I have a little less of a connection with, even though I really do love it, because this one to me was just more about just the art, the look of it, but I can tell you when I look at it, some of the things that I've examined about it and what I see in it, and I think the reason people think this one is satanic is because it's like the all-seeing eye, the eye of providence, some people would refer to it as, and it's got the sun rays coming from it, and a lot of people do associate that with Freemasonry, and some people associate it with like the Big Brother type thing, but for me, that particular symbol, which I have a tattoo of that as well on the back of my neck, to me, that particular symbol is more because it's a symbol of enlightenment is really what that's about. And so, she's fucking loud in there. And so with that being a symbol of enlightenment, for me, what you find out if you look into what enlightenment really is accepting that you don't know everything. Actually, you know nothing. And that's something I really do believe in, which obviously we all know something. But like when it comes to thinking that I have the world figured out, I don't feel like I have the world figured out. And so when you start off with that being in the picture right there, and then immediately under it says A Brave New World. And then there's another piece of, torn out newspaper or whatever. And that says A Grave New World. And I think that, like, for me, what I think about that is that it's almost like we live in this world with all this technology, and that was these advancements were supposed to put us in a better place. And instead, really, it's left us in kind of borderline abysmal place, because people are less connected. Also, not only are people less connected, but there's just the amount of what is the word? Degeneracy that you have open to you because of these technologies and like social media platforms and things like that. And so that's kind of what I think about those two newspaper clippings. Is it's a brave new world, but it's also a grave new world. And a lot of times when I think about that kind of stuff in the way that social media can be bad, because obviously it can be used for good, and that's the way I try to use it. But when it comes to you hearing about people like cheating on people, you know, because they ended up chatting with somebody from, you know, Facebook from their high school, and now they're no longer with their husband or their wife because of it, like things like that. Or cyberbullying, the way some people really let that get in their head. And I've had people try to truly cyberbully me at times when they were trying to cancel me, and I know what people go through when they decide to finally end it all, you know, from that kind of thing. Because if you let yourself just live in that world, and like I told you, I live a lot of times in solitude. So if people are trying to cancel me and they're trying to say the worst things about me, and they're really spinning these narratives on me online, which is something I've had done in huge numbers at certain points, you know, where I've really made big groups of people mad, they really will make you feel like everybody's against you and everybody hates you and this is just the world. And my rule for that, I've always told people, is just to get out. Like, so when I was in LA, because that would happen to me quite a bit in LA, you know, when I was living there, and I would immediately take myself to the Comedy Store or the Improv or a place, or even just an open mic where I knew there were going to be a lot of other comedians, and it was going to be, I was going to be surrounded by people that loved me. And so that's one thing I would tell people. Like, if you ever feel like the world's closing in on you because people online are really bullying you, then get out into the world and be around people that actually, because what you find is people in the real world don't care about that. Even if they see it going on, in a lot of cases, they don't care. And so so that's what, like, that to me means. And then if you notice, there's also a part where it says, "I really love you" on his arm, and his brain is exposed, you know? And I think that's being open to everything that's happening, you know, the brave new world, the grave new world. And I think that the eye is there because it's like God is supposed to be watching, but it also could be the things that people do think of when they think about, you know, that particular symbol, the all-seeing eye, the Eye of Providence, where they do think of like Illuminati and the powers that be and that kind of stuff. Like in the artwork, like, because, you know, there's what it means to me, and then there's what I think it means in the piece. So I already told you what it means to me, but in the piece, I think it really is that, like, you know, they are watching, you know, or you are in a sense being watched. That's a part of it, like when it comes to social media platforms and stuff like that. And then there's also a part where it says, had a chance, which, like, you know, because it could have been a great thing. And then on his arm, you know, because he's holding the monkey, and I think that that's supposed to symbolize, and I could be wrong, I've never talked to, you know, brainstorming about this, but where it says, "I really love you" on his arm, you know, and he's holding the monkey. I believe that's technically a chimpanzee, but he's holding the chimp, and I think that it really is him saying, like, you know, the little guy is saying to the chimp, like, you know, like, we were supposed to take care of nature. And I think that that's also why the trees are in the background, you know, or that's what it kind of means to me, is that, you know, we were supposed to take care of that stuff, and we're not really doing that. And so that's why it says, "I really do love you," is because, you know, as people, mankind, we were supposed to take care of these animals, and we haven't done the best with that either. And so, but like I said, this one is a lot less personal to me, and a lot more just, I just liked it, and I liked the way it looks. But the other one is probably the most, not probably, it's definitely the most personally significant for me. And I feel like, even though he didn't know me when he made this, because I think he made this before he ever met me, I feel like it was maybe divine intervention that had told him to make it for me. Because if you look at the character's face and the asymmetry, it's similar to the asymmetry I have, where this side is fuller and this side goes in more. So there's that. And that was caused by the silicone. Like I told you guys, I got injected with silicone. And so when it says limited logic at the bottom in the middle, there's like the internet wasn't around when I got the silicone, and I was just going off of word of mouth and what my friends had told me. And all the trans girls I knew had really good results. Not all, a few had things mess up, but all the trans girls I knew had good results with getting silicone injected. I personally did not. And I don't know if that was just the reaction to my body or if it was because that person wasn't particularly skilled, which I had been told that person was the one that had done the work of a lot of the friends that I had. So I really was literally working off limited logic, because I hadn't consulted with the doctor. I just trusted, and I don't blame anybody for any of this. So don't take that as like me being like, oh, they did me so wrong or whatever. And I was a full grown adult. And that's also a part of why I caution people against gender affirming care too early, is because I'm a person who has made mistakes with plastic surgery before. But I was working off limited logic, And so, I didn't have all the information that I needed. And it was like, take a bite. I looked at myself as a product at that time. And that's a big part of why I had it done. Like, sometimes people think that I had it done because I thought I was ugly. Like, that's what a lot of people think about, like plastic surgery and stuff like that. No, I actually was kind of greedy, is what I would say, is, if I'm being 100% honest, because I was making so much money at that time. And I thought if I could just make my features just a bit more angular and give myself more of like, a chiseled look. And if I can achieve that through silicone, getting injected silicone, then let me just do this. There's no recovery time. It's all very like, it's too good to be true, and it is, that's what it looks like. But, like when you're seeing it from the outside. And so, that's the way I see it as far as, the take a bite is, wanting to just get that. You know what I mean? Like wanting to take a bite, wanting to be greedy, wanting to get even more, and not at all doing the research that I should have done, because even though the internet wasn't a thing, I could have gone to a doctor. Consultations were free at that time. I think they're still free now. I don't know. I haven't had anything done in a long time, which is just the truth. And I would tell you guys if I did too. And then the what have I done? If you notice, the what have I done is written right there. And when it comes to the what have I done, immediately after my silicone was injected, I knew that they hadn't done it right. Like my face already had the asymmetry to a huge degree. And the fact that it's an apple that's being held in front of him that had tempted him, it always reminds me of a conversation that I had, because one of my friends, who's a beautiful, beautiful trans woman, and I saw her transform from just being a trans woman to a really beautiful trans woman, and she had used the silicone to do it. And there was a point where I mentioned that I really liked her cheeks, but since she's, was trying to emulate a female, she had like bigger apples, like that was more where the concentration was, where if you're a male, you want to have more like, on the sides, and so I told her that I really liked her silicone, because we were very honest with each other about that kind of stuff, and we're already good friends. And she was like, honey, you want some fishy apples like this? Because that's the way they talked, back in the day. And so to me, that's where it's like almost personal, or like meant for me, is because like the apple, she had mentioned her apples specifically, and the temptation is the apple. Like that's what it is, which of course could be biblical as well, or a reference to. But if you notice, the apple is also smiling, or looks like it's smiling, and so it's almost like the apple is saying, yeah, get me. Like the silicone is the apple, where it's like, yeah, this is what you want. This is what's going to give you what you need. But like I said, I knew that it was not correct as soon as it was done. So the what have I done really does hit hard for me, And then you get to, in the corner, sinfully delicious. Like, you're so tempted by this particular thing that's going to give you money, more money, make you what you want to be. And it's just as simple as eating the apple. That's all it is. It's as simple as taking a bite. It's as simple as, this will make all of my dreams come true. This will feed my greed. This will feed my vanity. This will give me everything that I want. And in reality, it didn't. And immediately after, like I said, it was, what have I done? And do I live in regret about it now? I know anybody would have to ask me. And I have to tell you guys that I 100% don't. And sometimes people will try to be insulting about the way that I look because, there is asymmetry. And I think that tells people that, obviously that must mean that I see myself as defective, or I see myself as maybe what they would see or what they think would be an insult. But to me, when I had the silicone still in my face, I really didn't like it. And there were points when I had the silicone in my face that I did really feel ugly, because I had to wake up and look at my mistake every day for all of the years that I had it. And I probably had it for, I don't know, more than 10 years for sure. And, so I hated that I always had to look at my mistake. Every day I had to look at my mistake. When I would look in the mirror, when I'd shave, I would have to look at my mistake. And then I found the doctor that was able to get rid of it. And some people would say aesthetically that maybe I looked better before I got the silicone removed, because then that created more asymmetry, and at least before, and the divots, and before it was like at least flatter or whatever. But I personally didn't feel that way, and I had spent a lot of money like having them, because at a point I had a big ball of silicone, because you add up the silicone. And the other thing you don't really account for is sometimes you can get inflammation from, the foreign body or the foreign substance being in your body. And so, sometimes that would make it expand too. And then weather, like that's something we've all noticed. Anybody that's ever had silicone injected in them notices that the weather, like especially cold weather or humid weather, does seem to make it expand in a way. And so, and I still don't know 100% if it was medical grade silicone I even got injected with, or if it was, because there was a whole scandal, because a lot of people had a lot of things go wrong that had used the same person that I used. It was a person named Jessica, and a lot, like real problems. Like I have a friend that's going to one day need a double mastectomy. Thank God she hasn't needed it so far, but she's going to one day need a double mastectomy because her breasts are nothing but silicone. And she's a trans woman. And so, but like rocks, like it literally feels like rocks in there. And like, we're good friends. So she had me feel it, like, and it's like just bricks, like what feel like bricks of silicone. And then she's got the deadening of the skin. One day I'll do a full video on silicone injections and stuff like that, because that's something I'd like to raise awareness about, and it'll be like a really well-researched one. Not that I have to do a lot of research on it, but just to give you guys or give the general public the real information about that kind of stuff. Because if I can stop, people from wanting to get that done, because people are still doing it. Even some celebrities have admitted to doing it. But that's something I would definitely like to make sure that people understand, or at least go into it knowingly if they decide to do it. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but that's what that, and the eyes, there's a lot going on in this one that just makes it like really where I feel like even if he didn't know it, it was made for me. And when I saw that one, I had to have it. Like that one I was drawn to. But yeah, so when it comes to that, even though, like I said, like some people may think that aesthetically I probably looked better before I had the silicone, I really hated having it. And then when it started to get to where, like I said, the skin was, or the oxygen or the blood wasn't flowing properly, so it was like starting to kind of make the skin die or have the appearance of dying, and that's why the dark spots and stuff like that, which got much better after I had it taken out, even though you can still see, but like got much better. And everything started flowing the way that it needed to. You know, it was able to. One day we'll talk about that too, I guess. But because of all that, like, it made it so I had to do it, and so then that made it so I had to really apply myself and do a lot of research at that point and find a doctor that was actually able to do it. It was the same doctor that did Caitlyn Jenner's facial feminization, also Dylan Mulvaney. Like, you know, it's a really good doctor in Beverly Hills, and it wasn't cheap at all to have it taken out. And they only can take it out so much because the silicone actually ends up mixing with your, which I know these aren't technical terms or whatever, I'm just talking to you guys like friends, but it ends up like kind of interweaving with everything because it's silicone and it's not at all encased in anything, and so it just like blends with, you know, your nerves and your facial tissue, your muscles, all that stuff. And so for them to take it out is really a process and barbaric, and the doctor did a really good job. And if I ever decide to, and I want it to be more symmetrical, then I can go to another doctor. But I just feel fine, and I like myself the way I am now. And so when people try to, like, you know, insult me about that or attack me about that, that's not at all a sore spot for me or a weak spot for me. If it had been before when I still had the silicone, I think it would be, because, you know, or still when I still had the bulk, because they weren't able to get rid of all of it, then I think that would bother me. But, you know, as it stands, it doesn't bother me at all, because at this point, to me, and I think this also partly comes with age, but scars and all, tattoos and all, piercings and all, whatever it is, this is my face, and this is the face that has gotten me a lot of attention, a lot of things, you know, even people attracted to me, you know, because there are so many people in the, like when I'm out in the world that are like flirty with me. And also like today I was at the Circle K. I know, real classy, but I was getting cigarettes, and the lady immediately told me, this young girl, she was like, you know, I'm sure she knew I was gay because that's the way she talked to me, but she was like, this, all of it, love it. Just want you to know I love all of it. And people tell me stuff like that quite a bit in regular life. Sometimes it's in reference to the piercing. Sometimes it's just my face altogether. You know, there's people that'll walk up to me, and like one time I was at a bar with my friend Tiffany not too long ago, and this guy walked up to me, and he was a cute boy, and he was just like, I just want you to know I just really love your aesthetic. Just the whole, your aesthetic, I just really like it. And I was like, thank you. And I was talking to my friend Tiffany, and I didn't want to seem thirsty or whatever, so I didn't like pursue it with him and try to have a chat with him. I just thanked him for it. And also sometimes, you know, you'll really appreciate the way somebody looks, but that doesn't mean you want to hook up with them, or that doesn't mean you want to, you know, start anything with them or whatever. And I didn't want to be that guy and seem like I was trying to do that with him, you know what I mean? So there was also that too. But like my point is, like, it's just none of that is a weak spot for me or at all like something that would bother me, you know, or something I'm insecure about at all. And so, like, that's also part of why I'm able to talk about it so openly and so freely. But, you know, I guess maybe sometimes when I talk about the artwork and stuff like that, which maybe I'll do some other pieces and talk about what they mean to me, if, you know, you guys like this or whatever and want to know about it. But yeah, that's where I'm at on everything, and that's what happens when I explain anything. I'll let you know more of my thinking than you probably ever wanted to know, so stay unbothered.